welcome back to Espresso with Saul. Today we're out in the field, out on the range, as they say, and woohoo, there we go. You know, before I get started on what I have here on the table, let me just head this off at the pass. The jacket I'm wearing today is a German Fleckdar camel, or Fleckdarn. I think it's Fleckdarn. Anyway, one of the things that Paul did for some members of the crew is he picked up some of these jackets. Well, actually, he had us buy the jackets, and then he picked up name tape and what we are a part of. No, we weren't some sort of special ops militia group. No, this was just our screwing around name. I was Saul and in the Insurgents. Now, Paul had one of these jackets, and he also, let's see, I've probably got 2 or 3 of these without nameplates on them also. But Paul, his name tag wasn't Paul. It was actually Matt with 2 T's, and then Insurgents on the other side. So why he decided to go with Matt, well, that was Paul being Paul. Anyway, I don't know who ended up with that coat, honestly, but whoever did, that was Paul's go-to, so hang on to it. Let's get back over here and talk about what we've got here on the table. These are, well, let me tell you about my 5.7 collection here and how I got started with the 5.7 by 28 round. You know, before we get started on that, maybe I should show you the cartridge itself and compare it with other cartridges. Give me just a minute. Okay, what we have here is the 5.7 by 28 round with the blue tip, and alongside it is a 223 round, and on this side of it is a 9mm round, and over here, for comparison, is a 10mm round. So I first got into the 5.7 round when the FN 5.7 first came out. Paul was telling me about this new pistol, 2,000 feet per second. Holy cow. You know, that seemed pretty impressive. We wanted to test it out. Well, Paul says, well, I'm going to run out and get one. I said, well, all right, they're a little expensive, but I might as well too. The FN 5.7 is a single action auto-loading pistol, and it does have a magazine safety, but the initial trigger pull, you have your slop here. Now let me show it to you this way. You have your slop here, and then since it's a single action autoloader, you would expect a super crisp trigger. And you know, it's not bad. There's not a lot of crunch, but it is a little bit heavier than you would initially think. So not bad for a big old plastic pistol, which is essentially what it is. I liked it. When I first got it, it came with adjustable sights. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, Paul and I had a lot of trouble keeping those sights from getting knocked out of whack. If you just blew on the darn things, they would just get knocked out of alignment. So one of the first things that we did was I went out and ordered a new slide with the fixed sights for it, and that seemed to fix it. And one of the things that I did is I blacked mine out. Back in the day, I wasn't a huge fan of the white dots. Today, as my eyesight gets a little bit worse, you know, I do keep some of those other sights, but in the old days, essentially I would black them out. I seem to be able to see that better. The other initial impression with this handgun was it wasn't 100% reliable. I couldn't count on it. It just seemed to malfunction every so often. So it was never an initial carry pistol, but it was a great backpack pistol. You know, it wasn't like it would jam every other round. It wasn't like it would jam every magazine. It would just jam often enough to where you just couldn't necessarily trust it. The neat thing about it too is it came with 20-round magazines, and you could get 30-round magazines for it. Okay, great. Well, then Paul does a video. He runs out and gets the Ruger 5.7. He does a video on the Ruger 5.7 and the Ruger LC Carbine in 5.7. As soon as I saw his review, he didn't tell me he ran out and bought it. No, he just did the video. Well, it's not like I could keep up with how many firearms he was picking up for his videos at the time anyway. But, you know, he gave this a very good review. And what I really liked about this over the FN 5.7 is the FN 5.7 didn't have a carbine that had interchangeable magazines. You had to go out and get the FN PS90, I think it was, with this funky 50-round and 30-round magazine that sat up top. And I looked at that. I really did. And I almost convinced myself to purchase it a couple times. It was expensive. It was small. And, you know, I'm sure I could have learned to work it. But the fact is I wasn't a fan only because of the interchangeable magazines. Now, Ruger did it right. You've got your Ruger 5.7 and you've got your Ruger LC Carbine, and they all use the exact same magazines. Now, I screwed up today. I was going to bring the 20-round magazines for it also, and I didn't. That's okay, because I'm not here to test out the 20-round magazines. When this pistol and carbine first came out, you didn't have a 30-round option for it. It came with 20-round magazines, and then you could order these magazine extensions for it. And these magazine extensions used the same exact spring as the standard 20-round magazine. Upon testing these weren't quite as reliable as the 20-round magazines that you could get. And once again, they weren't horrible, but they just weren't great. So I really wanted to wait until anybody came out with a 30-round magazine for it. Well, wouldn't you know it, a few months ago, ProMag, no, I'm not sponsored by them. They have no clue who I am, but I certainly know who they are. ProMag came out with Ruger 30-round magazines. We're out here today to test these 5 ProMag 30-round magazines. We're going to run them through the LC Carbine. We're going to run them through the 5.7 pistol. We're going to see how well they work. Now, I'm going to tell you, back in the day, ProMag, for me, and when I say back in the day, a long time ago, ProMag was kind of hit and miss with some of their aftermarket magazines. Some of them would work and some of them wouldn't. From what I can tell, the quality has improved over the years, but that doesn't mean I'm going to trust these to work flawlessly. I'm going to have to try them out for myself, run them through the pistol, run them through the carbine, and we'll see how they do. Join me. Okay, let's see how she runs, shall we? Okay, so the only issue I saw with that, well, there were two. The slide lock did not engage, and it appears that the red dot, for me anyway, seems to be a little bit high. No, I seem to be shooting, or seem to be hitting a little bit low with this. However, I'm not making any adjustments at all. This is my wife's main battle rifle, not mine. So I'm going to leave it as it is and aim just a little bit high. All right, let's check out the rest of these targets, shall we? You know, I really do have to aim a little bit high with where your red dot sight is. I'm going to have her take a look at this because I'm not overly impressed with how high the red dot is. But I'm not changing it. We're just going to keep rolling. Okay, we have one malfunction. And boy, it is in there too. Okay, we had one failure to feed. I'm not 100% sure that it wasn't my fault. You know, sometimes when you're putting in these rounds, if you don't get them in exactly the right way, they can get a little bit cockeyed when they're a double stacked magazine. And it's what it looked like. Typically, you smack it in the palm of your hand and it forces the rounds to kind of settle in place. I'm not 100% sure that that's a magazine issue. But let's keep trying it out and see how it works. Thought so. All right. Okay, got my reading glasses on. Let's try this out, see how it works in the pistol. Seems to be hitting just a little bit high and to the left. There we go, that's better. Now interesting. Yeah, I think it was just me. Interesting. Well, it seems to be functioning better than I am. Not sure what the malfunction is here, whether it's me or the sights, or a combination of the two, or maybe just my eyesight. Let's see here. Well, you can see why I've moved over to red dots a little bit more. But so far, that one malfunction, and once again, after looking at it closely, here, I'm going to show you here. Give me just a second and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, when you're loading the magazine, you know, you put the round in, and if you don't get it back quite all the way, and then you maybe get another round on top of it, and maybe that one's seated okay, but this one isn't, you know, sometimes I think what we should do, especially with loading something like this, is actually shove the round back in the magazine just to make sure that these are seated correctly. Just with this double stack magazine, or smack it in the palm of your hand multiple times, not just once at the end. Okay, well, I have a few more rounds left in one magazine. Let's see if I can improve upon that mediocre shooting that I just did. See what we can come up with. Not great, not horrible. Okay. Okay, that last magazine that I shot was the same magazine that had the malfunction in it, and it seemed to perform just fine. So I'm leaning towards user error, namely me. I think I screwed that one up and need to be a little bit more careful when loading these magazines. Having said that, up to this point, now we've only got, what, 150, 175, 180 rounds through it. That's not enough to just put the white stamp of approval on, but I would tell you at this point, they seem to be working pretty darn good. And I'll let you know when we hit 1,000 rounds through them. Make sure you know how many more, if any, issues that we've had. But I'd say if you're in the market for 30 round magazines for your FN5 or Ruger 5.7 or your LC carbine, go out and get them, try them out, let me know how they work out for you. And here in the future, maybe what I'll take out and have a video all for itself is my FN 5.7, show you guys how that works, do some shooting with it, hopefully do a little bit better than I did with that Ruger. Thank you all for joining me. I'll see you next time on Espresso with Saul. Bye-bye now.